Live from a studio apartment, this is Missed Information. All right. Well, people are saying the U.S. is about to strike Iran. Yeah, Maduro advised the supreme leader of Iran to sleep in a suit. He's just offering some advice. Be prepared. You don't want to get caught in your Nike sweats. Well, an ICE agent has reportedly shot another person, this time in the leg, in Minneapolis. Yeah, they called the Somali transportation company to take them to the hospital, but it turns out those don't exist. Yeah, he's just been bleeding out ever since. It's pretty terrible. Well, French officials have said that they'll be stationing their troops in Greenland to defend it against a potential invasion by the U.S. In advance of France's arrival, Greenland has raised the French flag. She went ahead and threw it up. Take that, France. You jerks. You quitters. Anyways, those were the jokes tonight. We'll go over some news. Oh, let me get Twitter up. This needs to go here. Sure. All right, perfect. That's, by the way, my little teleprompter. I use this app, which is kind of cool just for the jokes, because I like write them pretty much right before the show sometimes, so I can't remember them. But it actually, like, you can program it so that it follows. So I say people are saying, and it's like scrolling along with me. So I like that thing. But anyways, what's going on today? Let's check the chat. You guys are quiet tonight. How's everyone doing? Cool. Okay, yeah, I mean, big story, Iran. So there's been talk on the Pentagon Pizza Index for days that thing's been blowing up. Have you guys heard of this thing? Oh, hold up. Let me click here and then I'll get it up. Here's the Pentagon Pizza Index. So let me make it a little bigger too. That's what she said. And I obliged. So this is basically this theory they have online, which seems to kind of hold true sometimes, which is like they monitor these pizzerias over by the Pentagon, and based on the activity of the pizzerias, they reportedly can tell when stuff's about to pop off, because they get a bunch of orders, like people are in meetings and stuff like that. So all the pizzerias blowing up, that's a bad sign. There's news today that the U.S. is redeploying the entire USS Abraham Lincoln strike carrier. Oh, this is so annoying. One sec. Sorry, that's chat difficulties. Okay, let's go here. U.S. is redeploying the entire USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group out of the South China Sea towards the Middle East. So this is important for a couple of reasons. Number one, you know, people are talking about the Iran strikes being imminent. Well, this carrier group can't get there like immediately. They're not going to teleport over there. So you have Mario Nawful, I think his name was actually talking about this on Twitter. He's saying that it takes USS Abraham have been redeployed at typical cruising speed. That's roughly a week to reach the Arabian Sea. He says, so what does this mean for timing? Option one, the U.S. waits for the Lincoln, suggesting a larger, sustained campaign with full carrier air power. That pushes any major action to late January. Option two, the U.S. acts before the Lincoln arrives, using assets already in position, destroyers with Tomahawks in the Gulf, etc., like Operation Midnight Hammer last June. The Lincoln then provides follow-on capability for extended operations. He says the second option seems more likely. But either way, there's big movement. It's just going to take a while to get there. So it's kind of interesting, and people are speculating as to whether this is going to go down anytime soon or it's going to be, you know, a week from now. Trump certainly is positioning things. He's not shy about saying that he's going to do something or conduct a strike. If you'd asked me a couple of weeks ago, I would have said, oh, it's probably just a bluff. But seeing what happened to Maduro, you can't take anything from him as a bluff anymore, and certainly not when you're moving all these assets down there. I was kind of, I'm surprised a little bit. I guess not really surprised, but do you guys notice there's not as much pushback against, like, attacking the Middle East as there would have been? And I'm talking about amongst MAGA people, right? Like, MAGA people don't want to get involved in foreign wars, historically. We don't want to be involved in the Middle East. We don't want to get entangled in stuff that has nothing to do with us. So even though Trump seems to have public opinion on his side with these Iran protests going down, if you haven't heard what's happening, there's all these widespread protests that were happening in Iran. They shut down all the internet services and allegedly started murdering a bunch of protesters. So there's reports that there's like 20,000 dead, 30,000 dead. So the public sentiment seems to be on Trump's side that you want to go in and help the protesters, right? But historically, MAGA people would have still been against that and like, no, we can't get involved in this stuff, right? But it feels to me like Trump's efficiency with both the Maduro raid and the previous Iran nuclear strikes has somehow bought him this kind of grace with people, where we almost are like you hear about an Iran strike and you're like, oh, I mean, if we're just in and out and we take care of it in 24 hours, not a big deal. Right? Like it almost makes you, like, I think people have bought into this idea that even though they don't necessarily support the U.S. getting involved in these types of things, the fact that they have such confidence in the efficiency of Trump now, I don't see a whole lot of pushback about it, to be honest, on X or anything like that. There's mostly just people kind of seem to be assuming that it's going to go down and wondering what's going to happen. So that's interesting. That the carriers move down there. Here's another piece. So the airspace cleared over Iran today. People were showing photos of this all day long on X. It's like the airspace over Iran. You can see all the normal flights have been diverted around Iranian airspace, right? There were a couple random planes, though, that were still traveling to the country. I don't know the exact details of this, but I believe someone was reporting that they may have been like Chinese or Russian planes. I don't know the details of that, so don't hold me to that. But it was something like that. And then you had Bill Ackman was actually predicting this on X earlier. Bill says, I say they take Khamenei and family to China or Russia. A deal has been made. Again, total speculation. Experts, please weigh in. I think he was retweeting a picture of these planes. I think that's why he was saying it. But I guess whoever originally tweeted whatever deleted the post. So we'd have to see. But yeah, I mean, from what I've heard, it seems like there is the potential that if Trump does do something with Iran, he's going to look to do more than just random strikes. He's going to look to potentially try to overthrow Khamenei. So, and I'd be interested to see how long and how much China and Russia will tolerate of U.S. aggression in Venezuela, Greenland, now the Middle East, this rapidly sort of influential U.S. policy with what are essentially their allies. Venezuela was their big ally. Iran's one of their big allies. Are they going to step up and do anything? It'd be interesting to see now, because this is sort of the third big foreign policy thing that's happened in the last 3 weeks. It's pretty crazy. So anyways, Bill Ackman there suggesting he thinks that the Chinese or the Russians are going to try to extricate Khamenei from the country somehow. Take it over an ongoing conflict for a decade? I don't know. That's the thing, is Trump's been so efficient. He's been so efficient in the past couple of things that it's almost, I feel like, conditioning. I kind of agree with you, by the way. I was one of the people that when we started invading Iraq and everyone was like, oh, it'll be over in 3 days. I was like, bro, you don't know what you're getting yourself into. These people are tribal. They've fought, this is their home country. You can't expect to go in there, overthrow things, and then wrap it up in 3 days, right? But I gotta say, I'm a little startled by the efficiency of the Maduro raid in Venezuela. Like, he kind of did wrap that. He got that done in, like, faster than a Starbucks order. So, I mean, Trump has bought himself a little bit of credit with his efficiency on things. We'll see what he could do. Again, it also might be just a ploy, you know, after you've captured Maduro. I'm sure Khamenei's sweating that. You could move assets down there to try to force some sort of a deal or to try to force them to lay off on the protesters, right? But recently, Trump hasn't been moving stuff around if he doesn't use it. So, I mean, both Iran and Venezuela I thought were bluffs, and then he totally followed through on them. So, I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. What else on that? Other news, there was another shooting. Here, let me pull it up here. Oh my God. I'm not going to explain this technical problem, but you might hear me grumble every once in a while. Okay, here it is. You better work. Okay, there we go. Another ICE shooting in Minneapolis. Same place where Renee Good got shot. So this went down earlier tonight. This is the official statement from DHS on what went down. So apparently it was a whole thing. There's basically, guy's not dead, he was shot in the leg. Spoiler alert. But they say at 6:50 p.m., federal law enforcement officers were conducting a targeted traffic stop in Minneapolis of an illegal alien from Venezuela who was released into the country by Joe Biden, 2022. In an attempt to evade arrest, the subject fled the scene in his vehicle and crashed into a parked car. The suspect then fled on foot. The law enforcement officer caught up to the subject on foot, attempted to apprehend him. When the subject began to resist and violently assault the officer, well, that's what he did. While the subject and law enforcement were in a struggle on the ground, this is where it gets interesting. 2 subjects came out of a nearby apartment and also attacked the law enforcement officer with a snow shovel and a broom handle. As the officer was being ambushed and attacked by the 2 neighbors, basically, the original suspect got loose and began striking the officer with a shovel or broomstick. Fearing for his life and that he was being ambushed, the officer fired defensive shots. The subject was hit in the leg. All right. All 3 ran back into the apartment, barricaded themselves inside. The subject, the officer, both in the hospital, both expected to survive, I suppose. They mention this at the bottom, too, that the hateful rhetoric and resistance from politicians must end. And that was the point I was going to kind of bring up here. Waiting for the cartel action in Canadian province secession. The cartel action will be, this is just a comment over here. The cartel action is going to be hot. We're going to see how that one's weird. It's so close to home. I was going to make a joke about them doing land strikes in California against the cartels. I assume there's a good amount here. But anyways, I digress. At the same time that this ICE stuff is going on, you have Tim Waltz coming out with a live stream. I'll kind of play it here. He's over in Minnesota. The thing to note before this, I guess he was doing like a live stream statement, but he had really bad audio. So it's like echoing his voice in the background as he's speaking, but I'll play it for you here.
ICE agents cannot conduct these activities. Can help. So carry your phone with you at all times. Help us establish a record. And if you see these ICE agents in your neighborhood, take out that phone and hit record. To peacefully help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans. So carry not just to establish a record for...
It sounds like the voices in his head, frankly. Sounds like what's going on in Tim Waltz's mind all day long. But here you have, I mean, this situation is, like, why are the shootings happening only in Minneapolis, do you think? Do you think the ICE agents are just really aggressive in Minneapolis? Or do you think, maybe, you have the politicians in Minnesota telling people to monitor the atrocities of ICE agents as if they're a Gestapo force, right? Now, he does say peaceful in this statement. He says just film them with your phone, but he's encouraging the neighbors, basically, to resist this federal enforcement operation, right? And then lo and behold, hour or two later, you have another guy who's resisting. And in that instance, neighbors run out of an apartment. They don't start filming. They start beating the officer with a shovel, presumably in an attempt to de-arrest the individual and save this illegal alien. And then you had another shooting, right? Because you have these politicians that are framing this as Nazis coming into their state and scooping up your neighbors, and they're telling basically everyone to fight and monitor ICE agents, which is crazy. You know, you say sedition. I don't think it is too far off from that. I say it jokingly sometimes it's an insurrection, but actually it is low-key, an insurrection. Like basically they're even the states that do like the sanctuary city thing, you know, it's like you're disobeying policies from the federal government and you're harboring people who aren't even citizens in the country. Like that's the whole reason for breaking the laws, to protect the people who aren't citizens. That's insane. And then they're fighting against federal agents now. So it's pretty crazy. The New York Times reported the incident. The headline is about as bad as you'd expect, or one-sided, I guess. Let me pull it up. Here's the New York Times headline. Get that. Okay. This is actually Homeland Security commenting on the New York Times headline, but they just read, breaking news, a federal agent shot an immigrant in the leg in Minneapolis, federal officials said, 1 week after an ICE officer killed Renee Good in the city. So no mention there about the guy attacking the federal officer with a shovel. You think that might have been some important context to put in the headline. No mention of the neighbors running out and attacking the officer. It's just a good example of, like, if you're a leftist or you're a Democrat and all you really read is the New York Times, this is kind of going to be all that you understand about this situation in Minneapolis. You know, you're going to be like, yeah, like tomorrow at the water cooler at work, they're going to be like, yeah, did you hear they shot another person? Same city with Renee Good. Yeah, they shot him this time, I guess, only in the leg, but by the way, shooting in the leg did not make the protesters any less annoying. So that theory's been debunked. By the way, if this stream ends, it usually like cuts off of TikTok at like 20-minute mark. I don't know why. It has some technical error or something. So you can always join on YouTube if it does cut out. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let's see what we got in the chat here. Looking for the bad people. They do have a lot of reporting on the criminals that they've been arresting, which has been good. There was actually, someone was tweeting this earlier today. There was a CNN reporting of a ride-along with ICE from 2016, where the CNN reporters seem to support them capturing illegal criminals. A little bit different than today.
Attack one, guys.
An immigration and customs enforcement team gears up for another long day, pursuing undocumented immigrants who have been convicted of crimes in the U.S.
This is Fox News, by the way, playing this CNN profile from 2016 again.
Agents mistakenly arrest the target's brother.
In the process of talking to him in the vehicle, he then said, oh, no, I'm actually so-and-so. Who you're looking for is over here, this other address. He led us to that address, and we were able to actually arrest the individual.
Continue 0.2 miles. You have evidence, right, that he's using a fake identity, or?
That is correct. We believe he's been using a U.S. citizen's identity to live and work. He has an Illinois driver's license. Third target, he has an unauthorized use of a weapon, which was a firearm. He has a couple DUIs. He is on criminals.
I mean, like the game's changed, right? The language changed, the positions have changed. I think we've learned a lot about Minneapolis over the past 5 years.
We certainly have learned a lot about Minneapolis. They're just like a city known for like protest martyrship now. I don't know anything else about Minneapolis and fraud. What a crazy city to be a part of. But anyways, yeah. There was another report too. So just weird how CNN 8 years ago supported ICE's actions getting rid of criminal aliens, but now because Trump's doing it, they hate it, and you've got to fight against it. You got to resist, you know. There's a report today too, kind of related news. Try living there. Do you live there? Who lives in Minneapolis? My heart goes out to you. I don't want to do the Elon thing on YouTube, but that was the joke. What's up with the flashbangs? I heard nothing about flashbangs in a car with a 6-month-old. Who's saying that? What is this story? I'm across the river in St. Paul. If you're across a river anywhere, you're living in a rough town. I'm across the river. What's the subject here? Do I have to fill people in? No, we're talking about, what are we talking about right now? Shootings in Minneapolis, ICE shootings in Minneapolis, Renee Good. Here's the subject. We had a report today coming out that the ICE agent who shot Renee Good suffered internal bleeding in the torso. So they got documentation of that stuff. You're good. What do we think of that? What do we think of this report? I mean, I'll tell you what I think is, and I've heard other people, I guess liberals are saying this too. They're looking at that report and saying, internal bleeding in the torso, that sounds like a bruise, which is probably true. That probably is a bruise that they're documenting. Now, I'm sure they had to, but the other thing that's showing you is basically he did get hit enough by the car that he had bruising. And when it's bruising too, by the way, I've been hit by a car, random story, but like on feet, like I've been hit by a car. I probably was going like 10 miles an hour only or something like that. But I mean, I had like almost a full body bruise, like all the way down my side. I think mine was a little bit worse than what happened to this guy. But those cars are no joke, dude. When those things hit you, they are big. They knock the crap out of you. I mean, I was up on the hood of that thing, like tumbling around, getting thrown all over. I felt like I was in the ocean getting thrown around. So it doesn't seem that crazy, you know, when you hear about it. But yeah, those can do some damage. What else we have on Renee Good? Her father, I guess, was on a show today, on a news show. Yeah, I mean, the impact was hard enough to cause it, so it's just showing you he was struck. And, you know, the side I've always taken with this, number one, to me, it is a tragedy. I think it's horrible that the lady got shot in the face. It sounds... I don't think she woke up and had that as even a small remote possibility in her mind. At the same time, the other thing that's true is I don't think you can... I don't like the whole like slowing down video and looking to see like it's a football play. Did the officer do the right thing in that split second? Because I think they put their lives on the line. And come on, you can't make being hit by a vehicle part of the job description. Like, oh, well, how bad of a hit was it? It just needs to be treated as an absolute so that they're able to do their jobs without having fear of getting struck by vehicles and stuff like that, you know? So to me, it's a deadly weapon. It's unfortunate, but it happened, and really she should have just gotten out of the car and obeyed the officers, and definitely not sped up and driven into one of them. So that's tough. But yet her dad was on a, let me see if I can find it. He's on a show, I think it was CNN with Aaron Burnett, and he says, if she walked in the spirit of God, I don't think she would have been there.
Talk about the confusion, and you've been open, obviously, about your support for the president. When you look at the videos of what happened, and I'm sure they're very hard for you, Timmy, to watch if you've even been able to. But the Deputy Attorney General says that the Justice Department doesn't believe that there's evidence to back a criminal investigation, right? And nothing about charges or anything like that, just an investigation into what happened in terms of the ICE agents' actions. But they were, according to the prosecutors resigning today, pressuring them to investigate.
I mean, I seen the bump of the car hitting his legs. And so in a flash like that, it's hard to say how you would react.
for the president.
That's interesting. Sorry, I'll go back. But that's her father basically taking the same position that I was just mentioning.
In a flash like that, it's hard to say how you would react. From my understanding that he had been through that before, maybe dragged or something. And so, like I said, it's just a hard situation for everybody. Becca, she's a great person as well. I mean, I don't have any many enemies. I love everybody, and that's what the Bible tells us: love our neighbors as we love ourselves. But I think there's some bad choices, and the word says, "For the wrath of God will come upon the children of disobedience." And it's I don't blame Ice, I don't blame Rebecca, I don't blame Renee. I just wish that if we're walking the Spirit of God, I don't think she would have been there.
Pretty crazy. Yeah. So, kind of a little bit tough but interesting video to watch, right? Saying he doesn't blame the ICE agents. He says he saw the vehicle bumper hitting his legs and everything, so the dad acknowledges that the vehicle hit him. And, like I said, I do think she probably was a good person. You can film any of us in our worst moments, and we probably all have terrible stuff that we do throughout our personal lives sometimes. But, she was definitely somewhere that she shouldn't have been, doing something that she shouldn't have been doing. And at least partially because I think the politicians in Minnesota, Minneapolis, are encouraging people to act that way. And making people believe that it's their right to obstruct federal agents. Like, in what world? In what world do de-arrests, is that like a thing? That's never been a thing. So. Okay, what else we got? The Greenland situation is heating up. We might get Greenland, guys. Did you hear that? This is Danish officials. We're apparently meeting with Trump at the White House today to talk about getting Greenland. The French, this was my joke in the beginning, French are saying that they're going to be stationing troops over in Greenland now. My joke was that they were going to raise the white flag in Greenland, if you missed it. You can replay it on YouTube. It'll be back up like tonight or tomorrow. At the request of Denmark, I've decided that France will participate in the joint exercise. They're doing like military exercises and stuff like that over there. It's dumb, I know. The Danish foreign minister said something. This clip isn't that exciting, but he's basically just saying that they're going to form some type of
and we therefore still have a fundamental disagreement, but we also agree to disagree.
Basically, he's saying like we disagree with Trump, but we're going to form like a group, a task force to like come up with a working solution with the U.S. So the interesting thing with Greenland is like, number one, they are a part of Denmark, but they are not. They're almost like an independent, like a sovereign. They govern sovereignly, though they're a part of Denmark. It's sort of the same way that Scotland is a part of the UK, but they sort of do their own thing. So part of what Greenland can do, they've agreed to be a part of Denmark, but they can actually vote to leave Denmark if they want to. Now, Denmark has the ability in the parliament to veto that vote, right? Which I'm sure they would do now that there's like negotiations with Trump. But if I had to rate it right now, I would rate the chances, the probabilities of the U.S. physically invading Greenland close to 0, since it's one of our European allies. But that's what Trump does. He creates a little bit of chaos. He makes you think past the sale. And that was when he said, we're taking Greenland one way or another. He's making you think past the sale. Okay, he's making you think, okay, he's going to get it one way or another. Do we want to do this hard or just lose out more on a negotiation, or do we want to strike a really good deal? Given that Denmark's in a position where the country they're arguing over could vote to leave, right, even though they could theoretically veto that, they probably do have an interest in selling it. Plus, it puts the U.S. a lot closer to NATO, which would benefit all of the NATO European nations, right? Now the U.S. has a foothold interest in Europe, right? So that makes sense to me. Biggest 3 reasons, I've researched this a little bit online, and I'll probably be dropping a video on Instagram on it and TikTok tomorrow. biggest couple of reasons to want Greenland if you're the U.S. There's rare earth minerals there, which is super important when you're talking about building magnets, electric vehicles, electronics. Right now, China does like 70% of the world's rare earth mineral mining. So just reducing the dependence on China would be huge. Number two, there's obviously missile defense. So pretty much any intercontinental ballistic missiles that come from Russia or China would have to transit over Greenland. And they transit like at the apogee, at the highest point right over the Greenland. So the best way to build the Golden Dome, if you're building Trump's, I think it's funny that it sounds like his hair, but the Golden Dome, you would want to build that right on Greenland so that you could shoot directly vertically to intercept missiles. So it's big for missile defense. And then number three, it's really cold, which is important when it comes to AI. You're talking about building all these AI data centers. Those require tons and tons of cooling and energy to keep it cool. If you can host them in Greenland, can actually cool the entire data center all on its own, just from the natural temps. So we'll see what happens with that. If I had to guess, Trump is going to get a deal, and we're probably going to get Greenland or some sort of a working deal where even if it's not part of the U.S., like we have a lot more of a hold there. But I think it'd be cool to have it as like the 52nd state. It would be 52nd, right? Or is it 51st? I don't even remember. I think that's almost it for tonight. Probably last big thing, there was a leaker. There's news that there was a Pentagon contractor, I guess, who leaked the information to, I think it was the Washington Post maybe, and the New York Times about the Venezuela raid, the Maduro raid before it happened. So I guess they got that guy, and he's in jail. Which I'm sort of glad to hear that, because it seems like we just never catch leakers. And like constantly national security stuff is being leaked to the New York Times and all these papers. So I like seeing Trump follow through and actually find the leaker and put him in jail, because that's BS. You can't have that happening. That's insane. They could have just decided to air that story and blown the whole thing. Insane. But yeah, I think if I remember correctly, what happened here, yeah, it's right here. The FBI, I think, raided a Washington Post reporter's home, and that's what led to this information. So, and I don't know a ton of details about this story yet, so I'm coming in a little bit hot on this one. So we'll have to see more details about what happened, or, you know, how they got the info about this particular Washington Post reporter. Generally, I like the idea of tracking down the leakers, though. So provided that no laws were broken to, you know, infringe on the rights of this Washington Post reporter, which I don't know enough about it yet to really know what happened. Yeah, you can't be leaking classified Pentagon info, even to reporters. That's crazy. Cool. That's about the show for tonight. Anyone have anything else they want to talk about? Chat. Now's your chance. I'm with ICE, tired of the agitators. Stay at home, libs, and stop agitating, and this won't happen. Grouped. I might not have the chat, by the way. It's kind of funky on TikTok how the chat comes through, so it might have dropped off. But I think that's mostly it for tonight. So we'll probably wrap it up. Again, this show, it's every night. I don't have a set schedule yet. It usually ends up being later in the night than I'd like. But ideally, I'll lock down a set schedule pretty soon. I'll probably post that on the YouTube. And you can watch it here on YouTube. Although here it often drops out at like the 20-minute mark. So if it ever just cuts off here, just jump on the YouTube and I'll still be streaming there, theoretically. Or I guess you could turn on notifications. It would let you know when I'm live streaming until I get the schedule down. So, but we'll do it at least like Monday through Friday, I think. It might end up being every night. We'll see how it goes. I kind of like doing it. And then you guys can feel free to chat while you're here. That's kind of part of what it is just a hangout. It's not supposed to be some big crazy thing. And I tell jokes at the beginning of the show too. So if you're catching it late, you can rewatch it on YouTube and there's like a jokes monologue. That happens. All right, that's about it. I will see you guys tomorrow night. So have a